got a dream car on their bucket list, right? Maybe it's a vintage muscle car, or maybe it's a high-tech luxury model. My vehicular crush is sporty. It has a 6-figure price tag and an Italian name, Zamboni. The first time I saw this marvelous vehicle was at a high school hockey game. Normally, I wasn't interested in any kind of sports ball, but this was a grudge match between the girls' hockey team and the boys' hockey team, so attendance was pretty much de rigueur. And when that Zamboni glided out onto the ice at the end of the first period, I was captivated. Maybe it was because I was almost 16 and I had driving on the brain. Or maybe it was because I identified with that bulky, slow-moving vehicle that, unlike me, was steady and graceful on the ice. Whatever the attraction was, it cooled off pretty quickly. I got my license and my attention turned to more roadworthy vehicles. And it would be 20 years before a Zamboni crossed my path again. Only this time, when it did, it would fuel a lifelong infatuation. That second meet cute happened in the Washington Post in 1977. I was a regular contestant in the Style Invitational, the Post's reader participation humor contest. And the week that our challenge was to invent stupid crimes, I scored my very first contest win with Zamboni buy shootings. And I celebrated this victory by buying myself a little plastic working model of a Zamboni at Zamboni.com. And I kept my trophy at my desk at work until I had to bring it back home again because my male coworkers kept stealing it to play with. I also bought myself a lapel pin with Snoopy driving a Zamboni, a squishy Zambini baby, and, oh, my very favorite, and I brought it with me, a Zamboni Monopoly token. In-your-face race car. But these tchotchkes were just the tip of the resurfaced iceberg. Today, my collection includes more Zamboni models, a license plate holder, and a floaty pen that has a tiny Zamboni in it that moves slowly down the barrel when you tilt the pen. My friends enable my obsession too. They send me links to pictures and Zamboni-related news items. And they fell all over each other to be the first one to tell me on the day that the Google Doodle was a Zamboni game. It's a fun obsession. Speaking of friends, I had another meet cute in the Style Invitational. At a monthly meetup for regular contestants, I met Jay. If we hadn't clicked as immediately as we did when we first met, his choice of a first date activity would have done the trick. He took me to a Caps game. At one point during the game, I joked to him that I was jealous of those kids who got to ride shotgun on the Zambonis as they made their rounds between periods. And on our second date, Jay surprised me with the gift of a Matchbox Zamboni with the Caps logo on it. 10 years after that, during an anniversary trip to Toronto, Jay surprised me with another Matchbox Zamboni, this one with the Maple Leafs logo. So romantic. It turns out that Jay's gifts were just the tip of another resurfaced iceberg. Around October of 2014, Jay made a point of making sure that I would be available for an early dinner date on December 30th. Now, my social calendar normally doesn't require 2 months advance notice, so I knew something special was up. And over the next several weeks, Jay and I played a smart-ass game of 20 questions about this mystery date. I learned that we wouldn't be doing anything illegal, we would not need foreign currency, and we would also not need any protective eyewear of any kind. But I would need to bring my driver's license and to wear warm clothing. Okay. On the evening of the mystery date, we drove up to a huge ice skating complex in Laurel, Maryland. And I knew then that the surprise was Zamboni related. I was going to get to ride shotgun after all. But it was even better than that. Jay had enrolled me in Zamboni school. We joined about a half a dozen other students and an equal number of friends and family members in a small meeting room near one of the snack bars. Our instructor was Tom, one of the rink managers. Tom was well-weathered, had a wiry build, and it looked like he had been born wearing a windbreaker. Using a whiteboard diagram, Tom lectured us on how a Zamboni works. He spoke of snow and hot water, and of augers, blades, and conditioner. He explained that ice hockey requires hard ice, while figure skating requires softer ice. Or maybe it's the other way around. I really wasn't paying close attention because I was eager for the next part of the class, where I would get to drive an actual Zamboni, or a Zam, as Tom called them. But when the lecture ended, there was a Q&A session. Most of the questions came from the friends and family members who weren't going to be driving. Me, I didn't care how much a Zamboni weighed, and I didn't care how much water it held. I just wanted to drive it. But finally, it was go time. We students lined up as 3 Zams were rolled out onto an Olympic-sized rink. The guy in front of me strapped his GoPro camera onto his forehead and shook off on the first one. I snagged the second one, a green and white beauty with a festive Christmas wreath on her front end. After a few slow starts and stops, I took off down the ice. And you guys, it was amazing. I remember being surprised at the actual sensation of speed. The only thing that kept me from feeling like a complete and utter Zamboni driving badass was the bigger badass hanging on the side of my Zam just behind my left shoulder. Each student driver had to be accompanied by a rink employee on the ice. And my co-pilot was Tom himself. He was actually amazed at the ease in which I took the first couple of curves. I explained to him that I had learned how to drive in a Volkswagen Beetle during the winter in Northeast Ohio. So this was a piece of cake. The icing on the cake was making ice. I had already forgotten what Tom had told us in class, so he walked me through it. You flip this switch to activate the blade and get the augers going. You crank this wheel to lay down some water, and then you use this lever to lower the conditioner and smooth it all out. And presto, a glistening, if crooked, ribbon of ice stretched out behind us. Jay stood on the sidelines and captured this all on video. After just a few more short laps around the rink, it was time to let someone else have their turn. I jumped down from the driver's seat and into Jay's arms. I'm not sure which one of us had the bigger goofy grin on our face. The only thing left in this magical evening was graduation. Now, I have diplomas that state in Latin that I have earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And I have a diploma in French that states that I completed coursework at the Sorbonne. These pale in comparison to the certificate of achievement that Tom handed me that night. It states, in charmingly stilted English, that I, Sandra, successfully demonstrated a willingness to learn the skills of driving a Zamboni.